Our reading this morning is from our brand new book of the month, Creating a World That Works for All by Sharif Abdullah. I am reading from page 12. The essence of inclusivity. Simply put, the goal is an inclusive human society on a habitable planet. A society that works for all humans and for all non-humans. This means fulfillment for both those who are at the top of the society and for those who are at the bottom. Work, resources, responsibilities, spiritual gifts, and material goods may not be evenly spread, but everyone has enough. Anyone could trade places with anyone else without feeling deprived or oppressed. Such a society is essentially benign and healing to both the human and the more than human world. All beings, all things are one. Our lives are inextricably linked to one another. Because of this, we cannot wage war against anything or anyone, without waging war against ourselves. Therefore, we are obliged to treat all beings the way we want to be treated. There are no enemies. All beings are expressions of the Sacred One and must be treated as such. Some beings cause pain to others. This does not mean they are our enemies. Once we understand that we are interconnected, we have the responsibility to create a world that works for all. Please join me in our affirmation for this month. I'm going to read it through once, and then I'll ask you to stand and declare it with conviction. I say yes to a world that works for all, free of fear and anchored in faith. I walk boldly forward in love, accepting myself and others with an open heart. Please stand and join me. I say yes to a world that works for all, free of fear and anchored in faith. I walk boldly forward in love, accepting myself and others with an open heart. And so it is. So let me ask again, where is God? Everywhere. How can that be? I am looking at walls, I don't see God in the wall. I don't see God in the chair. What? What? It's true? This unity principle number 1, isn't it? God is all there is. It's everywhere. It's an energy. It's a life. It's a force. It's an essence. Every cell, every atom, everything there is of the name and of the nature of God. We cannot be separate from it. You're sitting on it. Your feet are resting on it. You're wearing it. You're swimming in it. You're thinking with it. You're breathing it. You cannot be separate from it. One life, one power, one presence, one beingness. And if there's only one, can anything be outside of it? Absolutely not. Now, do we behave as though things are outside of it? Do we often sometimes think that something is outside of it? Do we oftentimes treat people or things as though they are outside of it? Do we forget that how we treat others is how we are treating the divine? That's a pretty big concept. Have you ever been rude to anybody in your whole life? I haven't, but I was thinking maybe there's a few people here. You never know, you know? All right, I'm joking you, but my point is, when I'm rude to somebody, I'm being rude to the divine, aren't I? If I'm mean to someone, if I am holding anyone as anything less than the divine in expression, perfect, whole, and complete, I am separating myself from that person or from that thing and behaving as though they are not of the nature and the essence of the living one, the infinite presence. And, you know, in my book, that's kind of arrogant. Now, I can say that because I'm also guilty, right? I'm guilty of that kind of human condition arrogance of treating others as though they are not divine. I forget too. And what I want to call us to this month, and in this series, it's actually a 2-month series, we're going to be working with this book because it's a deep idea. Creating a world that works for all. I want to call us to a bigger idea of the nature of God and the presence of God, and to think about how do we operate in the world. Do we walk our talk? Do we behave as though God is all there is and I am one with God? So I want to start with this idea of a world that works for all. Sharif Abdullah, who wrote this book, starts the book with a vision for a world that works for all. Now, what is a vision? A vision is our preferred future. That's all it is. When we say, I have a vision for this, we're saying, my preferred future is, and we, back in February, your Board of Trustees defined a vision for our community, and we said that our vision for our community is a vibrant, thriving, spiritual community of love. Isn't that lovely? Would you like to be part of a vibrant, thriving, spiritual community of love? Me too. And you know what? We're being about it, aren't we? And the vision is the thing that pulls you. If you have a vision of something that is vibrant and thriving, you begin to become more vibrant and you begin to thrive more, right? And so as we are beginning to put in place the supports for vibrancy and thriving and a spiritual community of love, we're beginning to have that experience, aren't we? Feels good to me. I'm a happy camper. And yet, we have a ways to go, right? And the good vision has an impulsion to it that is never satisfied. Will we be ever vibrant enough? Will we ever thrive enough? Will we ever be loving enough? There's always more room for more love, right? Our vibrant, thriving spiritual community of love can always become more of all of that. And that's one of the things that makes it a really great vision for us. Now, we also have, just as a little aside, in that same board retreat, the board defined our mission statement. Some of you have heard it. That mission statement is, we are here. Our mission is simple. We are here to awaken people to their spiritual nature. That's why we're here. Waken people up. Waken ourselves up. Got that? So, here's the thing. Are you more awake than you were 3 months ago? Yeah. Me too. So once again, that good mission statement is something that we can always grow into more. If you're fully woke, you don't need to be on the planet anymore. If you're here, you have more waking up to do. And so this vibrant, thriving community of love, the context in which we are bringing this community into being is a context of waking up to our spiritual nature, to our fullness, to our oneness, to our allness. Sharif Abdullah's vision is a world that works for everybody. Have you noticed that there are some people on the planet that the world doesn't work for very well? Let us be about waking up to, number one, that fact, and number two, how, the method for creating that world. And you know who can create that world? People who are waking up. If we're not waking up, it will never happen. because we have to understand our essential oneness and unity with all people and all things in order to value that the world work for all. In order to understand, like it said in the reading, when I wage war against someone else, I am waging war against me. When I am depriving someone else of their good, I am depriving myself of my good, because there is no separation. There's only one thing. And as we wake up more and more fully to that essential spiritual truth, then we can be about creating a world that works for all. And it's kind of interesting because it really is, actually, I'm not going to say that. Never mind. It's not that interesting. You don't care. It's just something for me to think about. So, what we're teaching here is unity principle number 1, God is all there is. Unity principle number 2, what is it? People who were in class yesterday? I am one with God. Thank you. Unity principle number 2, I am one with God. And number 3, unity principle number 3, we change our experience of the world when we change our consciousness. We use the same creative power that the divine embodies to create our experience of life. Now, it's fascinating that that is the case, because I would almost think Sharif Abdullah was a unity guy, although I don't think he is, but I think he follows our teaching, because he says the only way we change our world, the only way we create a world that works for everyone, is by changing our consciousness. What? Did he hear that in a unity church? That's the only way we do it. We change the world by changing our minds. We change the world by expanding our conscious awareness of what's possible, by practicing a bigger idea, by being willing to practice waking up to the spiritual truth of oneness, unity, love, presence. Are you in? Because here's the thing, we can do it or not, right? We don't have to do this work. For me, because I am on this conscious spiritual path, my life is way more fulfilling than it used to be, right? I have such richness of experience and feeling and content in my life that I didn't used to have, because I was about getting to the next party or working harder or doing this, And now I have a qualitatively different experience of life because I'm willing to be on the path of waking up. I'm willing to be on the path of recognizing that you and I are one. I'm willing to ask the hard questions and wrestle with things. And you guys, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. It's not always comfortable. We have to become comfortable with discomfort. We have to become willing to talk about hard stuff that we don't necessarily know how to talk about. And this has been an interesting preparation time for me for this next 2 months, because it's a new way of being for me as a spiritual leader. And it's been a little uncomfortable because I'm used to being really in command and knowing what to use, so it's a little uncomfortable for me. But it's at the edge of comfort. It's when we move into discomfort, that's when we start to grow. So if this conversation becomes uncomfortable for you, hallelujah. I hope it does. Stay with it. We're in it together. So here are the things that Sharif Abdullah says would demonstrate a world that works for everyone. There are 3 kind of criteria that he talks about. The first one is enoughness. And by that I mean, in the realm of human experience, he says, resources may not be shared equally, but everybody has enough. Do we live in a world in which everybody has enough? We don't even live in a country in which everybody has enough. We don't even live in a state or a county that everyone has enough. So the first criteria is enoughness. Resources may not be shared equally, but everybody has enough. The second one, and this has actually been the one that has been most instructive for me to consider, the second one is exchangeability. Exchangeability, and what he means by this is trading places would be okay. You might not prefer or want to trade, but you would not feel stigmatized or punished if you had to trade places with someone else in our society. Wow. That's deep. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to wrestle with that one. The third criteria he talks about is common benefit. The system, the overall system, benefits everyone. The overall system benefits everyone. And he gives a great example in the book, and I encourage you to get a copy of the book. Unfortunately, we were not able to get copies for our bookstore. Typically, we do have our book of the month in the bookstore. I encourage you to go to Amazon.com, Amazon Smile, and Nancy's going to talk to you later about how to do that, because then we get a little benefit, to get a copy of the book, because it's an important read if you haven't read it already. But he gives a great example of this in the book where he talks about in Sri Lanka, there is an organization, a service organization there, and he talks about in the canteen when everybody comes together for lunch. And everybody comes together for lunch from everywhere. Volunteers, staff, local people, all kinds of people. So Westerners, Sri Lankans, volunteers, all kinds of different people. And there really is what would appear to be an unequal system of service for the people who come together for lunch in the canteen. And what happens is the Westerners get to eat at tables off of china plates and that kind of thing. The Sri Lankans go to the door and they get their food at the door of the kitchen. And everybody enjoys their meal together. There's a lot of interaction happening. There's energy and there's life in the place. Now, what he points out is there is enoughness. Everybody gets enough food. There is exchangeability. It would really be okay for the Westerners to go to the door and get their food. It would really be okay for the Sri Lankans to get their food at the table on china plates. It would really be all right. No one would be stigmatized. No one would not have their needs met. And then the third criteria, common benefit, everybody would benefit. Everybody benefits in this system. Now, the part of me, I'm going, but wait a minute, how come the Europeans get to eat off the china plates and the other people are? And what he goes on to say is, you know what? In Sri Lankan culture, there's a thing about feeding guests differently. That you feed guests first. You feed them the best food. You give them the best utensils. You give them the best, the best, the best. And that it would be challenging for a Sri Lankan, for a person who was raised in the Sri Lankan culture, that they don't want you, they want to go to the door. You know what I'm saying? They want the guest to be treated differently. And what makes it really work for all is that it meets these three criteria of enoughness, exchangeability, and common benefit. It's a great example. Now, I want to share with you, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to go on a service trip to Cambodia. And Amy, I'm going to ask you to show these slides. I want to show you some slides from my trip, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. Can the lights go down a little bit? So I went there for 2 weeks to work at a school, and it was a village school, and this is the village that the school served. This is the main road of the village, and there's probably 15 houses along here. And then out kind of in the bush around the school is a bunch of other houses, in which the families live. And there's about 500 kids in the school that we worked in. As you can see, it's very poor. A lot of poverty, yes? Next slide. This is one of the little mini mud holes that At the time we got there, it was the village water supply. In the rainy season, it fills up and it gets cleaner. And in the dry season, it evaporates and it gets used and it gets more and more muddy. These children you see in that mud hole are actually fishing. They're fishing for mudfish that their mother, who's standing there watching them, is going to fix for their dinner tonight. Over here you can see these are some of our guys building a fence. The school was having problems with the livestock kind of wandering into the classrooms during the day. And so one of the projects that our team did was we built a fence around the campus for them. Amy? This one is really hard to see. Go ahead and skip this one, Amy. This is a mom and her little girl, and this mom, honestly, I can't remember her name now, but she was terrific. One of her older daughter was in my English group at the school. I asked her permission to take her picture and to share it with people at home, and she gave me that permission. She's standing on her front porch. This is her younger daughter, not her older daughter was in my English group, and she's also pregnant, and it's a long story, but she's by herself. She's by herself in this experience of poverty. And as you can see, her home would not be considered to be adequate to my standards of living. Amy? This is another family. This is the grandma. She's taking care of the younger kids during the day while mom and dad go off to work. These are the younger kids that aren't old enough to be in school. This is one of the homes that's off in the bush a little bit, and the older kids are in the school. This family, actually, I'll tell you that in a minute. Go ahead, Amy. This precious girl is, Shrey Pung is her name. We took the kids, the school sent us a list of the supplies that they needed, and we took packages of school supplies, tablets, pens, all kinds of things for the kids. And Shrey Pung was so excited, like she had her own school supplies, She could not get over it, and she wanted a picture of herself with her school supplies. And so this is the picture I took of her for that, and sent that back to the school later for her. Amy? These girls, this picture and this picture are actually the same girl, and then that's her buddy. They were in my English group. One of the things that's important for these people is that they be able to get jobs. That is their only path out of poverty. There are not a lot of jobs. One place where there are a lot of jobs is in the tourism industry. And in order to work in the tourism industry, you need really good English. And so one of the things that we did was we had colloquial conversational English groups every day with the kids. And these girls were from my group, and they were terrific. Next. These girls are a little bit older. They're 14, 15, and they're teeny tiny, aren't they? Part of why they're teeny tiny is DNA, right? Part of why they're teeny tiny is nutrition, because there is a difference between the kids you see in the city and the kids you see out in the villages. These girls were in, it was called Girls Only Group, because these kids don't have access to feminine hygiene supplies. And so one of the things that we did was we worked with an organization called Days for Girls to take those supplies to them to teach them how to use those supplies so that they can go to school. Because they don't get to go to school when they're on their periods. Like, really? So these girls were terrific. And I just want to point out this right back here. See her eyes? See her up top? That's an old soul, that one. She and I talked a lot. And she's really terrific. Next slide. These kids, I hope you can see, they're holding pictures of themselves. We realized, the kids were always asking us to take pictures of them. And of course, we were doing that joyfully because we were having so much fun and we loved them. We wanted to take pictures of them. But a couple days in, one of our groups said, you know what, I don't think any of these kids actually have a picture of themselves. And we were like, oh my God, I think you're right. So we asked the teachers and they were like, no, they don't have pictures of themselves. So 2 of the members of our group took a picture of every kid in the school, 500 kids. And then we all chipped in to have them developed, which was not an inexpensive process in Siem Reap, Cambodia. And the pictures actually arrived at the school the day after we left. And so the principal, Shea Seren, sent us this, it says, thank you group of Genesis. It was with Genesis that I went on this trip. And these are all the kids holding their pictures. Isn't that lovely? They now have pictures of themselves Do your kids get school pictures every year, right? Right. One more slide. I wanted to share with you this sign that is in the entrance to the school. Use this in life. Talk softly, walk humbly, eat sensibly, breathe deeply, sleep sufficiently, dress smartly, work patiently. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what this means. When you see these pictures, I don't show you these pictures to engender anything like pity or sympathy. Do you understand that? That's not the purpose. In fact, that would be harmful. I show you these pictures so that I can ask you these 3 questions. Do these kids have enough? I would say barely. They can survive. But certainly I wouldn't call it enough. Would you change places with these families and these kids willingly without feeling punished or deprived? No, me either. I'm so glad I went. It was a powerful experience. And trust me, I stood on, front porches and thought, could I live here? Really? Could I get my water from that mud hole? Could I eat mudfish for dinner? Without feeling deprived or punished or stigmatized? I don't think so. Is the system that is in place of benefit to these people? No. You see, the world doesn't work well, anyway, for this community. And these are our brothers and sisters in spirit. This is us. These people belong to us. They are our spiritual companions here on planet Earth. Are we willing to wake up? To do something to make the world work more effectively for these people? You see, the spiritual truth is we live in an abundant universe, don't we? There is plenty and enough. There is more than enough for everyone. There is more than enough for 1 billion times how many everyones there are, right? But the system does not have common benefit in mind. We have ourselves in mind, don't we? And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me be clear. Taking care of yourself is an important thing. I want you to take care of yourselves. I want to take care of myself. I want to experience an abundant life, and that is okay. I can do that, and I can do that free of guilt. Am I doing what I can do to nurture and heal the larger body of God at the same time? See, there's nothing wrong with me having my good. Nothing wrong with that. So don't take this message wrong that way. What is right about me having my good is then I can become a source of good for others. And sometimes I think we get all kind of myopic and we forget about a vision of a world that works for everyone. And how do I take my good and allow it to energize my life to embody more good for everybody? How about it? You want to? All right. So let's wake up. What is the false belief that is at the root of our withholding? Lack, separation, fear. There's not enough. And if you look at, really the core thing is fear, isn't it? Lack is fear of not enough. That's all. We're just afraid. It's okay. I'm just reminded of I was watching my little grandniece, who is the cutest thing, trying to figure out how's she going to get down the stairs. And she's like, and finally she's just like, right? She was afraid. And she just kept working with it until she figured out how to do it. Are you afraid? Sometimes I'm afraid. I read the news, sometimes I go, oh my God, I'm afraid. I look at stuff like that, some of those pictures. I live in that environment for a short period of time, and it does bring up fear in me. So now I get to wrestle with it and figure it out because I am waking up. I am allowing the embodiment of a divine idea to take form as me and lead me to a greater idea. A greater idea, a world that works for everyone. Will you join me? We have to release the fear, you guys. As long as we're anchored in fear, we're anchored in fear. Unity principle number 1, God is all there is. Number 2, I am one with God. Number 3, consciousness is cause. Fear is cause of what? More fear. Lack is cause of what? More lack. And so as we do our individual healing work, we begin to embody a bigger consciousness of possibility for our own lives and for our community and for Mother Earth and for everyone who is on this planet with us. And we are set free. As Sharif Abdullah says, we change our world by changing our consciousness. What we are talking about here is an evolutionary shift. It's time. You know, it used to be a lot of these things were so hidden. You know, we didn't really know about them. Or if we did, it was easier to turn our heads, right? It was easier to ignore it. But it's getting harder and harder to ignore, isn't it? The global system does not work to everyone's benefit. People are suffering. And it's harder to not see. At the same time that is happening, we are being called to embody a greater consciousness of love. What did we talk about this 2 months ago? What are the 2 great commandments? Love God. Love your neighbor as yourself. These people are our neighbors. These are our neighbors. We love, and they tell us how much we love ourselves. Do you hear that? How we treat the people around us tells us exactly how much we love ourselves. Love God. Love your neighbor as yourself. Let's be about the work. And so that's what we're talking about over the next 7 weeks. I know. Now I have a couple of thoughts for you. Caveats, I don't know what you would call them. What I don't want to have happen is that we move into fear. Okay? Sometimes when we start talking about tough stuff like this, we start to get scared, and then pretty soon it's like, oh, I'm going to stay home and watch the soccer game this Sunday. Right? Sometimes we start to get a little scared, and it's like, I'm not feeling good, I'm not going to go, or you know what I mean? That kind of thing can start to happen because and it's just our resistance coming up. It's just our fear, that's all. Emma Curtis Hopkins called it chemicalization. We chemicalize. Fear brings up everything, I'm going to say that differently. Healing brings up everything unlike healing. When we start to heal and we start to have to actually address the fear, then it's like, oh, I don't feel good, I can't go there today, right? But it's really about not wanting to do, it's not even about not wanting to do the work. We all want to do the work. It's just our fear is coming up in bigger ways. And so we kind of tend to avoid. So I want to caution you about that. And if you find yourself getting stuck or start demonstrating that kind of behavior, just, ask for some support. Call your buddy that you sit next to and say, would you please make sure I get to church on Sunday morning, because we got some stuff I got to deal with and I'm not feeling like it. Somebody was telling me in the membership class yesterday that she has a workout buddy, that it gets her to the gym, right? That when she wouldn't go, but she won't let down her workout buddy. She might let herself down, but she wouldn't let down her workout buddy. Isn't that interesting how we do? So get yourself a church buddy if you need to. Okay, we're going to be there. It might be uncomfortable, but we're going to be there and we're going to do the work. So don't let your fear drag you away from this, because we are here to awaken you to your spiritual nature. We are here to create that vibrant and thriving community of love. And this community has the opportunity to be instrumental in creating a world that works for everyone. And I am excited about it. Are you? They're like, I don't know, maybe not. I'm going to go check out the Lutherans down the road. Oh, maybe not. Here's the thing. The work starts with us, right? This is an evolutionary shift. It's a transformation of heart and mind and head. And our culture is ready for it. We are ready for it. Let us be instrumental. And how we can be instrumental is doing our own work, and then we can work in concurrence with that in creating the culture and the norms that create that world that works for all. We move ourselves from a consciousness of anger and fear and lack into a consciousness of love and inclusion. And so to begin that work, let's have a little visualization meditation, shall we? What I invite you to do is anchor your feet firmly on the floor. And take the sacred breath with me. And as you breathe, to recognize that you breathe the very breath of God. And there is a power and a presence that is greater than you are, and yet it is right where you are. There can be no separation, no duality, no division. There is only the one life. Living you, breathing you, calling you forth. Calling you to the sacred yes. In your heart, say yes. As you anchor in this awareness, and I invite you now to breathe into your heart, to simply breathe into your heart, and to feel your heart begin to well up with love. Love for God, love for that infinite presence, love for all of creation. And as you begin to feel that love spill over and overflow out of your heart and into your body, you realize your pores are permeable, your skin is permeable, there is no separation, no division, only one thing happening, and the energy and the energetic that is you is the energy and the energetic of the very essence of God. You recognize and know and awaken to your oneness with all things. And so it is right here in this conscious awareness of our unity that I declare us ready, waking up, available to a world that works for all. And so just bring to mind right now your experience of a world that works for you. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Your life is fulfilling and complete. You know who you are. You walk in faith. You allow yourself to be all that God would have you be. And from this place, begin to imagine now a world that works for everyone in the same way that it works for you. A world in which opportunity is available universally. A world in which justice is simply our way of being. A world in which there is no lack, no sense of dis-ease or not enough. A world in which resources are simply available. A world in which love is the governing element, the governing force, the governing presence. Envision this world, connect with it, and notice how it feels. How does it feel to be part of a world that works for everyone? Peace and love and joy simply overflow from deep within your being. The central core of us, that is the one thing, is that peace and love and joy. And so simply allow those feelings to permeate your consciousness now. And know that this day you have awakened a little more. You are transformed by the renewing of your mind. You are ready to go forth and do your part in creating a world that works for everyone. And so knowing that this is a remembering process, that we don't declare anything that isn't already so. It is already true that we are one. Let us sing together, remembering who we are. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. 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 And so we remember, and so we go forth and make a difference. And so it is. Amen.